branches, the courts. And so 30 years ago, my brother was in between his sophomore and junior years of college and found himself at the scene of a horrible crime where 3 young people lost their lives. He cooperated fully with the investigation, took the officers back to the scene, walked them through everything. He was offered a plea deal, which would have had him out of prison 10 years ago had he accepted that deal. But it would have required for him to say he murdered people, and he did not murder anyone. So he did not accept that deal. He went to trial. In Indiana, you do not actually have to murder people to be found guilty of murder. And Orvan will talk to us from the juror's perspective about this in a minute. And so he was convicted and sentenced to 3 life sentences without parole. On appeal, the Indiana court found he could not be sentenced to life without parole because it had not been proven that he actually murdered anyone. And so they resentenced him to 240 years, which is the same thing. And so now that Governor Holcomb is leaving office, this is the time. You see President Biden giving pardons and clemency. This is a time where the executive branch uses their power to exercise the justice and mercy that clemency is meant for. And so we are urging and compelling Governor Holcomb to grant Kofi clemency before his term ends on January 12th. Before I continue, Mr. Brown, any questions?
No, you've done an excellent job. Let's move forward. You got any questions, Griff?
No. I like it when she lays it out so our listeners will understand exactly what we're talking about. So please go forward.
Yeah.
Wonderful. And so there are 3 ways your listeners can help right now. And then, Orvan, I'm going to throw it to you. Number 1, we have a petition on change.org. You can search it, Kofi, Kofi, Ajabu, Ajadu. Please sign this petition. It has more than 6,500 signatures supporting clemency for my brother. Number 2, you can email the governor's office. Orvan has requested a meeting with the governor that has not yet been granted. You can go to the Indiana office of the governor's website and send a message. It's called Ask Eric. And you can request that 1, he take a meeting with Orvan. 2, he review my brother's petition for clemency. 3, he grant clemency for Kofi before he leaves office. And number 3, we are having a rally. So on January 3rd at 1 p.m. at the office of the governor downtown, 200 West Washington Street, we will be rallying for clemency for Kofi, and we hope that you will join us. So with that call to action, which I will give at least 5 more times before we end our show today, Orvan, I would love for you to give the history of how you even became involved with this case and where we are today.
Okay, well, thank you for the time that you're spending with me. I kind of explained most of it in my letter to the governor. I wrote Kofi a letter last May and offered to give my recommendation for clemency for him. Since that time, I've done an interview for a video, and then I wrote another letter to the governor. In my letter to the governor, I wrote that 30 years ago, or 29 years ago, during the trial, I was a maintenance supervisor at the South Bend Post Office. And because of the pre-trial publicity, the trial was moved to South Bend. And I was called to jury duty, and the jury was sequestered for like 2.5 weeks. I was waiting for my daughter's wedding, and I was afraid to interfere with my daughter's wedding, but luckily it did not. Anyway, during the trial, there was a number of items that I thought were questionable. Like I said, in my letter to the governor, I wrote that, under the Indiana law, a defendant is just as guilty as a co-defendant that committed a crime. That is the reason that I voted to convict him. But like in my letter, I said that decision has haunted me for 30 years. Because he was a 19-year-old kid at the time, and his youth, his fear, his lack of experience kept him from trying to figure out a way to get out of a bad situation. He mentioned to his family that he thought he was going to a pot party, which at that age I can understand it, and ended up being in a situation where those 3 young people were killed. I said, as he was there and he was with the co-defendants, he was just as guilty under Indiana law. Okay, during the trial, one of the co-defendants testified against Kofi, and his eyes never met the jury. He was kind of looking around up in the air and kind of mumbling about this or that. But the evidence pointed that Raymond Adams, who was the co-defendant, was the actual guilty party. A forensic pathologist found a footprint in the basement where a 14-year-old girl was killed, and that matched Raymond Adams, not Kofi. In addition, it was presented that none of the bloody clothes that were found belonged to Kofi, because Raymond Adams' name came up during the investigation, and he had a prior record, and the police thought he would be worth, keeping an eye on for a little while. And it was that surveillance of Raymond Adams that led to the finding of the bloody clothes and tying everybody to the crime. So, but that and what else?
I think that was plenty, Orvan. And what really stood out to me when you reached out to my brother, I remember when he called and read me your letter, he said it was midnight and the letter had been lost, and a correctional officer brought him a letter and said, Ajabu, you have a piece of lost mail. And he opened it and read this letter, and it really changed all of our lives because we were a bit lost for what to do next in terms of how to continue to fight for his freedom. And you ignited this movement back in June. We had never thought to ourselves the way a juror's life gets changed. And you said this had haunted you for 30 years. What was it that made you reach out in June to my brother?
Oh, in June of 2022, I had a heart attack. And while I was in the hospital recovering with 2 stents, I had a cardiac arrest. And basically, I fell over dead on the floor. And I woke up, and there's a bearded nurse who just zapped me, or give me CPR and zapped me to bring me back to life. And it changes your perspective on life a little bit. And I feel the extra time God has given me to live has given me time to, do something about my beliefs. Like I mentioned to you, I believe strongly that Kofi did not commit a murder, any murders at all. But like I said, it has haunted me for 30 years that I convicted him under the Indiana law. So I reached out to Kofi, and that's when I recommended to him that, for clemency. And in the letter to the governor, I explained, gave them some background and parts about the trial, and also why I had, come forth to help Kofi with his clemency deal.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I do have a couple of questions. One, with the clemency, is there a timeline or a deadline that you could get to Governor Holcomb before the new governor takes over? And then the second part of my question is that are there any other jurors that he has reached out to or you all have reached out to or that even know about the plight that you're working through or working with at this time?
Orvan, I'll take the first part, and then I'll ask you to take the second part. So, yes, thank you so much. The timing is urgent This is why we're having the rally on January 3rd at 1 o'clock at the governor's office, because when Governor Holcomb leaves on January 12th, he will lose the power to grant clemency. The new governor who's coming in, it is very difficult to grant clemency early in your term because of the politics. Clemency is a political act. And so when you're leaving office, that gives you more freedom to use clemency for its designed purpose, which is mercy and justice of correcting oversentencing. And so we are only 14 days away from Governor Holcomb losing the power to grant the clemency for its purpose. This is literally the perfect case. A 19-year-old kid who did not kill anyone, who had to be convicted because of the way the law was written, who has served 30 years. And so this is hugely urgent. We have 14 days and 14 days only. For the question about the jurors, Orvan, can you educate the audience on sequestration and, why we don't know who the other jurors are to be able to reach out?
Okay. Like I said, because of pretrial publicity, the jury was sequestered for 2.5 weeks. During the trial, the names of the jurors were kept away from the press. And the judge, sealed those records so that, the public would not know the name of the jurors. I wrote in my letter to the governor, I wrote that, even though the judge, sealed the names of the jurors, I was sure the government had enough influence he could find out that or verify that I was on the serve of the jury.
Okay.
So
go ahead. I'm sorry.
That's fine. I think I was just about done there. Go ahead.
Okay. And so I guess my last question then would be, if this governor has the power to grant this, are there any other venues or avenues that you all are utilizing to get the word out for what you're doing? Obviously, this is a 1-hour radio show. Do you have any contacts or have you reached out to television, print media, or any other kind of media to let folks know exactly what you're trying to do?
Yes, thank you so much. So we started this with a press release. So it has been released to every radio, print, and media outlet in Indiana and major outlets across the country as well. Congressman Andre Carson has written a letter urging Governor Holcomb to review my brother's clemency petition. House Representative Shackelford has written a letter to Governor Eric Holcomb urging him to grant clemency for my brother. I mentioned the change.org petition that everyone listening can sign. You can search KOFI, Kofi, Ajabu, AJABU. It will pull up the petition for you. It has more than 6,500 signatures. We are on social media, Instagram, at Clemency for Kofi. We are on Facebook. You can search his page, Kofi Ajabu. We are on YouTube. You can watch an excerpt of the video that was the clemency recommendation that was submitted as part of his full petition to Governor Eric Holcomb. We have spoken to CNN, who is considering running the story. We have contacts at the White House. We have contacts at the New York Times. And so this is a huge full court press because we only have 14 days for Governor Eric Holcomb to exercise the power that only he holds to grant clemency for my brother.
And now, I know that there are other cases in the world, and probably in the state of Indiana, that have, where justice has not been served properly. Do you know if there are any other cases that might be remotely similar to what you all are asking that could cause some confusion? Not confusion, be too many cases on his docket. If he's like, okay, I have to consider this one, or should I consider that one? If you follow what I'm trying to ask.
I do follow what you're trying to ask, and we don't know, but I do imagine, because it is known that when governors and presidents are leaving office, they have the freedom politically to give pardons and clemencies. And so I imagine there are several clemency applications on the governor's desk at this time because the timing is right. And so that makes it even more important that we try to raise above the fray our voices. We want every person who is unjustly incarcerated right now, for whom clemency is the just and merciful answer, to be granted that clemency. We also do not want my brother Kofi Ajabu's name to be lost in the stack, which is why we are pursuing all of these outlets.
Griffin, I pulled up the information called change.org, the Indiana governor to grant clemency to my brother Kofi M. Ajabu. They have approximately 6,628 petitions. I'm looking at a beautiful picture, and I see Mama Ajabu there, and she's been quiet the whole time in this screen. She was one of our major teachers here in Indianapolis back in the day. Jane, have you got anything to say?
Well, I can just say to you that I am so grateful for this opportunity. This lovely daughter of ours taking the lead, and Mr. Orvan coming forth as he did and reaching out to Mabie. And I will tell you, a mother's heart never ever changes. And I know full well, as I did on that fateful day, and as I sit here to recount it, I'm trying to hold myself together because it was a very, very shocking and painful day. And as you said, Reverend Brown, being a former teacher and administrator in Indianapolis Public Schools, you having been a board member at the time that I was serving as well, part of that time that I was serving as well. On that day, all district level administrators were in a meeting, as well as school principals on one of our school campuses. So I had no idea what had occurred. And when I finally arrived back at the central office, I was bombarded with messages and calls that Mabie had been trying to get out in touch with me, the whole nine. And he shared with me that Mabie had been arrested for this potential murder and being involved in this particular case. Excuse me, I tell you, it's really, really tough to recount it all. But I tell you, I said to him, oh, no. There has to be a mistake because, you see, this is a child that I raised, so I knew it had to be a mistake. I said, they must be talking about a young man who looked a lot like Mabie, that he had been friends with for just a short while from Kokomo, Indiana. I said they had the same stature, about the same size, same complexion. He had dreadlocks, so this couldn't be. And Ajabu assured me, turn on the TV. And when I saw my child's face, I could look at his eyes and tell that he was in absolute shock. I'm sure he had experienced something he never imagined, that our family had never imagined. And I guess the toughest part of it was, I felt that everything, life was just draining from me as well. And I thought, this couldn't possibly be happening, but indeed it was happening. And we have lived it, we have survived it, and I just have to say, but God, because I asked that he be kept physically safe, though I knew he was mentally suffering. He did not suffer any serious harm over this 30 years, but 30 years is more than enough for something that you did not do. To talk about accountability, he was in the wrong place at the right time in my mind. He has suffered that accountability. He has spent it. And again, as Nzinga mentioned earlier, given that he was offered to be untruthful, a 20-year sentence. And we talked about that, and I said, and he agreed, he wanted not to tell a lie and say he did something he didn't do. We hoped that the system would be merciful. We hoped that the system would be just. And it didn't turn out like that for us at that particular time. But this is yet another opportunity. And again, thank you so much, Mr. Orvan. I can't tell you how much my heart sings that the Lord touched you in such a way that caused you to move this along at a time when it was very, very necessary and important for us to have an opportunity such as this one.
Mm-hmm.
So I do have another question. In a state with Notre Dame, Indiana University, Purdue, three major colleges, do you have any support from any of our educators or academics in this state that have recognized your plight and have come on board?
Is that a question for me?
Or whomever.
Yes, we don't have specific supporters who have identified themselves from those academic institutions, and it really is a factor of the timeline that we have operated on. So to give you a traditional clemency timeline, once a person puts in their clemency application, it takes the parole and pardon board usually 5 months before they even get to it, and then another year before they review it before you get your hearing, and then even another year before a recommendation gets put in front of the governor. We started this in June when we met Orvan, and so the timeline has been so condensed that the time it takes to get those institutional, if you call it endorsements, has not been there, which is another reason why we need the people and the community to let Governor Holcomb know that he has the support of the community to use his power of clemency for Kofi.
So give us some more details on the rally. Will this only be one rally, or are you planning on multiple other events to bring awareness to this situation?
We right now have one rally planned, and so this is why we need it to be as big as possible, as many people to come out as possible. It is January 3rd, so 1 week from yesterday, Friday coming up, January 3rd at 1 o'clock p.m. on the first floor of the governor's office, which is 200 West Washington Street, Indianapolis, Indiana. We will be screening the excerpt of the clemency video is our intention, sharing the story, calling on Governor Holcomb to use his power of clemency, and requesting the meeting between the governor and Orvan that has not yet been granted.
So, Dr. Brown, you always talk about love on our show, but not always, but that's one of the subjects that we talk about. And here we have a situation that our quote-unquote concerned clergy should be able to get on board with. Do you see any reason why the clergy shouldn't be involved in this?
Oh, okay. They should be involved, and you use the word love. I have to take it to another dimension, unconditional love. And I use that terminology because certain parts of our tradition has been love, but it's been based on conditions. What this is taking place is unconditional love. Now, I don't want to get into the theology and all of that. And interesting, when you mention Notre Dame and the Pope just mentioned in his universal speech that of a certain amount of changes in our behavior in politics and stuff, and that's a whole nother thing. But to answer your question, the concerned clergy ought to be involved, and I am going to give a call to another colleague. They wear me out. The Interdenominational Ministerial Alliance. Lionel Rush would be more aggressive, I know, personally. And at the same time, I sure like to see something if my sister, Dr. Harrison, or the mama could touch base with the Catholic Church here in the state. They carry a certain amount of influence of what I would call, Griff, compassion, and close to the whole meaning of unconditional love. Have I said enough?
No, look, these are the things that we need to be talking about, because in a situation such as this, you get power through numbers, and so for one family to try to pull this off is almost an impossibility. So without the aid and assistance of other institutions and entities, the only way you're going to get this done is having support from as many folks from as many different areas as possible. And that's all I'm looking at, is how can you build a groundswell of aid, assistance, and help to make this thing work and make it make sense for everybody.
Right. Dr. Harrison, is that Nzinga? Have I got
Nzinga? Yes, Nzinga.
Oh.
And Dr. Brown, I'm sorry that I dropped the title. I know how that feels. Dr. Brown, I'm straight.
No, you ain't got to do that, dear. I get beat up on that, too, so I'm happy being just plain Tommy.
But thank you. Those are incredible recommendations, and we would absolutely love any connections and warm handoffs that you can give us, because I agree, Griffin, this has been a Herculean effort for our family, and I'm grateful for my father, Moja Ajabu's connections in Indianapolis, which has gotten us to this platform and really of the progress that we've made. Orvan, absolute dedication, Dad's connections, the other institutional players in Indiana will be what helps us get clemency for my brother.
You know, I had a question for Orvan, too, and it's so funny. I don't know how old he is, and I'm not going to ask, but I'm a 70-year-old guy. Dr. Brown is 82. And, you know, as we gentlemen get older, we kind of reflect on our lives and think about the that we have done, haven't done, and maybe should have done. You said this has been tearing you up for 30 years. I'm just curious, had it not for your health problems, do you think you would have made that letter or written that letter?
Well, I just reached my 77th birthday last week.
Okay.
Yeah, but, you know, like any person our age, we look back and look at the mistakes we've made throughout our life, and sometimes you wonder why we lived this long. And, you know, anyone who's lived as long as we have, well, I know the mistakes I've made, and Kofi was, you know, at his young age, 19 or 20, something like that, he didn't know how to get out of a bad situation. And, like I said, I think having my heart attack 2 years ago, it kind of woke me up a little bit. I've thought about this over the years. Like I said, it's haunted me for that 30 years. But how do I want to say that? But, you know, I gave a testimony at my church the same day, you know, on my anniversary of my heart attack. You know, the gift of life, you know, God has permitted me to live another 2 years. And that's the reason why last May I wrote the letter to Kofi. You know, I'm new to this clemency process. I didn't know how long of a time frame it would need. But, you know, right now, 6 months looks like it's not long enough. But that's why Nzinga is pushing as hard as it is, because she has a condensed time frame.
Right. And I'm just curious, and again, I'm going to get a little personal, and you can tell me it's none of my business. But when you did your testimony in front of your church, do you feel that you got support from the other parishioners, or were they like, I don't know if I want to tackle this deal?
In my testimony to the church, I just mentioned about the gift of life was my gift from God. You know, one of my blessings. I did not mention Kofi when I gave my testimony to the church.
Okay. Just curious, because again, I'm just trying to figure out how you can create, not you, but we can create a groundswell with multiple churches, multiple religions, multiple denominations, multiple individuals that can see injustice. And again, I think Martin Luther King, and Dr. Brown, you can correct me, has a statement that if you see injustice and do nothing about it, you're just as guilty as the person that's doing it.
You're getting good, Griffin. You're doing very well. I see you have, just messing with you. You're very correct. Yeah.
And so that just tells me that we as a people, not necessarily a community, we as a people need to say, you know what, I see something that's wrong, and I need to speak on it. And I need to get other folks that are like-minded individuals to support whatever these things are, because if it's wrong, it's just wrong, and we really need to start talking about doing right.
And everybody's quiet. Dr. Harrison or Jane, you all got any additional? We're giving you a little extra time if there's anything else you want to put into it, and again repeat how people can get in. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you for the additional time. So I'll repeat the call to action, and I really appreciate this. We have to hold space, right? Two families lost their children in this tragedy. And so we have to hold space for what their experience has been, and let there be justice and let there be mercy for Kofi. And so, number one, the rally, January 3rd, 1 p.m. at the governor's office on the first floor, 200 West Washington. Number two, sign the petition on change.org. You can search it by my brother's name, Kofi, Ajabu. Number three, send a message through the governor's website. It's called Ask Eric, imploring him, pleading with him, urging him to have the meeting with Orvan, because as you can hear, Orvan changes hearts and minds, right? His experience as a juror, having heard all of the evidence, knowing the facts, having his life experience, has led him to the conclusion that clemency is just. Send a message to Governor Holcomb asking him to take that meeting with Orvan and to grant clemency to my brother. And then I'll add on what you, Dr. Brown and Griffin, have given us today, which is if you have any connections, please email us at clemencyforkofi@gmail.com and share those connections with us.
Well, before we let you go, we want to go one on the phone lines. We have one caller. I want to get him on real quick. M. Hopetet, are you there?
All right, gentlemen, Dr. Brown, Brother Griffin, and to our guests, Mr. Ajabu, and everybody else, I just wanted a quick comment out. At the very start, and I remember this case, I followed a little bit there. Ramoja is a good friend I've known for years. And I just wanted to say that this is just what disturbs me about the lack of power that black people have in this country, the clemency process, the pardon process. We've got so many people who need to be pardoned and clemency, and we just don't have the power. Governor Holcomb just won't pardon. He's pardoned 2 people in 8 years. It's 2 or 4 at the most, I think it is. It's ridiculous. Pence didn't pardon anybody. Now, Biden has had a slew of them lately, and he did 45,000 on the federal level, and that's all on the federal level. But state by state, real quickly, the largest single-day pardon in state history, in all the states of the United States, was a Republican governor in Oklahoma about 3 years ago. He pardoned 65,000 people in one day. And he said it was an act of righteousness and things to do. Brother Griffin, and it's just hurtful. We don't have that power. Because you know darn well if we did, a whole lot of our people would not be in there. And we would look out for all, right? It doesn't matter. What's right is right. Malcolm say, I'm for truth, no matter who does it. He tells it, I'm for what's right, no matter who does it. And so it's just inspiration, but that's my pain. It just really pains me. He come up from a family of lawyers. It really pains us, this whole process, and the fact we have no power to really release people who should be released. Thank you for taking my call.
Okay, all right. That's in hope that he always brings in a positive energy in his various concepts of how things are taking place. Dr. Harrison, anything else you want to say?
Yes, thank you, Brother Imhotep. We hope that Governor Holcomb can follow the example of that Republican governor in Oklahoma. The power of clemency to right the injustice of the judicial branch has been woefully underused in Indiana. I will just give the call to action one more time. 1, join us for the rally, January 3rd, 1 p.m. at the governor's office. 2, you can call or email the governor's office. The governor's phone number is 317-232-4507 to ask him to meet with Orvan and grant clemency for Kofi. And number 3, please sign the petition at change.org. Thank you so much, Dr. Brown and Griffin, for this time.
Dr. Brown, I just have one more thought. I don't know if you all have been on any other Radio 1 shows, but obviously Tina Cosby has a show that comes on every day, Monday through Friday in the afternoon. If you have not been on her show yet, I think that that's something else, Dr. Brown, that we might want to do to try to get them on that show with a little bit higher profile in the middle of the day for some other folks to hear this story.
I agree. And Dr. Harrison and Jane, check that out this coming Monday. They'll be back live, and that their show is at 1 o'clock noontime. And call in, and myself and Griffin will try to touch base with her.
Well, I know, Tina, I can give her a call directly. And Dr. Brown, if you have numbers for Ms. Harris, then that might be the way we can make them connect. And that way we stay out of the middle and we can let two grown women work it out.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, Griff. I'll get that to you, and Sister Harrison. Yeah, I have it all, and I'm sitting up in front of this computer. You know how I am about these computers. I really don't like them, but I have to go along with the program on computers. But I'll get that to you, Griff, and then you can give that number to Tina.
All right, fantastic.
Okay, well, I think this has been one of the most productive, compassionate programs that we've had for the year 2024. You get my drift?
Yeah, and again, one of the things that I believe in, and I think that any of our listeners would believe in, is though we have diverse political opinions, we have people that call our show that we do not agree with. But right is right and wrong is wrong. And if you see situations such as this, that is so obviously a miscarriage of justice, we as human beings need to all step up and say, hey, guys, we have got to do better.
Yeah. That's what Harambe means, Swahili, carrying community.
Let's pull it together.
Right. So, all right, Dr. Brown. I don't know, ladies. I'll get your number. I'll reach out to Tina and any other entity I can think of, media entity I can think of. I'll try my best to connect you to them, and then we'll see what we can do. Dr. Brown, with your education and all your educational friends, do the same.
Okay, and we also thank you, Orvan, for your input, and my prayers for you and your family up in where you all are located. The only thing that I wish for all of you all, which you all don't like me to say, I want some snow.
Oh, my goodness. No, we need to be Orvan and shaking his hand, because, again, the real man.
Snow, and y'all say, let it go, but...
I forgive you for asking for snow.
You're going to get snow clemency.
Yeah, snow clemency, yeah.
Well, Orvan, if I ever have the opportunity to meet you, I just want to shake your hand, because, again, it takes a real man to stand up and say, there's a problem, I recognize it, and I really want to do what I can do to fix it.
God's given me an extra 2 years, and I wanted to do something good with that extra 2 years.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Orvan, I would like to ask you a fundamental question of mysticism. When you had that experience of a heart attack, did you ever, in that experience an out-of-body awareness?
No, I did not. It was just, I thought, I stood up, I was getting dizzy. I told my wife I was going to lay down. Before I could tell her I was dizzy, I was on the floor. All the bells and whistles went off, for the emergency crew. And I said, I had a room full of people when I woke up, but my wife had to step over my body for them to work on me. But they gave me CPR and zapped me to bring me back to life.
All righty. Okay. That's a whole nother kind of discussion, and I'm sure, Dr. Harrison, her field is psychiatry. Am I right, Dr. Harrison?
You are correct.
Okay, we can have another discussion about the state in the human experience, but I'll leave that alone. Okay, Griffin, we move forward into our guest. We look forward to giving you more information and also getting an update this coming year.
Thank you so much.
All right. And thank all of you all. And Jane,
Thank you.
Jane Ajabu, just as good friends, I just say to you, do like me and Griff trying to do. Stay out of trouble.
Doing the best I can.
Okay, all right. You all have a great day and have a happy new year. All right?
Thank you so much. No, thank you and yours.
All right.
All right, bye-bye.
Harambe, sponsored by ICL, the Indiana Christian Leadership Conference.